Welcome everyone to this Understanding Packaging UP Scorecard introduction event. It's very nice to have so many people attending, and it's also nice to have such a wide variety of professional backgrounds and countries among the participants. Before we start with the actual introduction event, I would like to introduce you to some short housekeeping rules. First of all, if you have questions, please use the Q&A section. We collect all the questions during the event, and we try to answer as many of these questions as possible in the Q&A section in the end of this event. On the other hand, if you have questions to the host, for example, if you have any problems, please use the chat function or the raise hand function. We will also use the chat function to put links into their links where you then can see in the presentation or links that are mentioned. And last but not least, please be aware that this event is being recorded. However, participants are not visible in this webinar. After these more formalities, I would like to introduce you to Mo. And he is actually, he's opening this introduction event with a pre-recorded musical performance. Mo is an American blues musician and a 5-time Grammy Award winner. With his song, Don't Throw It Away, he introduces us to the plastic pollution challenge and hopefully inspire people this way to take action. Please enjoy.
I'd like to play a song for you. My name's Kevin Moe. Here I go. Leo B had a big idea, something that will last for 1,000,000 years. You see, someday we will all disappear, but the big idea will still be here. You got to use it again. Baby, don't you throw it away. Now, who could imagine everything it could bring? You can turn that plastic into any old thing. It's so convenient, you just can't beat it till it gets in the ocean and the fish start eating. You got to use it again, that's right. Baby, don't you throw it away. Yeah, well, now a turtle can't swim and a bird can't sing when they're stuck in the hole of a six-pack's ring. We got bottles and bags, caps and cups. We got too much stuff. We got to clean it all up. You got to use it again. Baby, don't you throw it away. Well, now the place of this planet, as far as I can see, oh, it could use just a little plastic surgery. Didn't know he was starting to mess. How it all turns out is anyone's guess. I use it all the time, I must confess. But if I cared a little more, I'd use a little less. You got to use it again. Baby, don't you throw it away. Ooh, you got to use it again. Baby, don't you throw it away. And it's a beautiful world. Baby, don't you throw it away. All right.
So thank you, Catmo, for this very inspiring song and this very nice performance. And of course, also thank you very much to Plastic Pollution Coalition for making this video, this song possible in this introduction event. Now we would like to come to an introduction, and I would like to hand over to Joanna Anderson. Well, Joanna Anderson is working for Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council, and she is a Director of Learning and Membership Engagement there. At the same time, she is President of the Single-Use Material Decelerator. That's the group behind the UP Scorecard you hear more about in a minute. Johanna, the floor, or probably rather the microphone, is yours.
Great, thanks so much, Florian. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It's really, really wonderful to see. Oops, let's see, we missed a slide. Okay, there we go. It's really wonderful to see so many people actively engaging on this really important topic. Before we jump into more content, I just wanted to orient you to the agenda so you know where we're going. We obviously had that wonderful musical introduction from Kedmo, and I hope everyone was dancing like I was. I'm going to give a little bit of overview as to why we decided to come together to create this new tool. You're going to get a live action demo of the scorecard. That's going to be really fun. You'll hear a bit more about the metrics that are behind the scorecard, and we'll discuss some of the future developments we have planned for the scorecard. And then you'll get to hear some video statements from some of the members of the Single-Use Materials Decelerator. And most importantly, we'll be sure to leave time to answer questions that you may have about the tool and to begin the ongoing discussion on this topic. My mouse, there we go. So why are we all here today? I imagine that most of you are here for a whole host of reasons related to the packaging, the food packaging that you either purchase or produce. Maybe it's because you're aware that we produce 300 million tons of plastic each year, and half of that goes towards single-use materials. And maybe you're concerned about where that material ends up eventually and the impacts it has on humans and the environment. Or maybe you're concerned about the wildlife that are exposed to the materials that end up in our aquatic environments, our marine environments, and the harmful impacts that it has on those animals. If your concern is climate change, you're likely concerned about the greenhouse gas impacts that the growing plastic sector has. But you're also equally concerned about the fact that the alternative materials often have a similar or larger greenhouse gas footprint. So how do we get away from this reliance on single-use materials? And how do we ensure that we're selecting the most sustainable materials during this transition? The bottom line is that we don't need to settle for unsustainable products, but we do need to help purchasers in identifying the more sustainable materials. Fortunately, we can leverage the significant purchasing power of institutional purchasers, particularly those in the food industry. But we need to help them in identifying the right materials. We can transition to reusables and to more sustainable materials for both reusables and single-use materials. But we need to be able to send a clear market signal to the suppliers so they can respond more efficiently and effectively. And again, we need to help purchasers in this journey. So it's for all of these reasons that we came together to form the Single-Use Materials Decelerator. The SUMD is a cross-sector collaboration of scientists, food industry professionals, and NGOs with an interest in reducing our reliance on single-use materials and transitioning to safer, more sustainable foodware and packaging. And today we're really, really excited to introduce you to the brand new Understanding Packaging Scorecard, to share more about our plans for future developments and to gather your feedback. And now I'd like to introduce Jonathan Kaplan, who's a sustainability specialist with Compass Group. Jonathan has been involved in this effort since the day it began and will moderate our industry panel focused on how and why we created the scorecard and how we hope it will get used. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Joanna. Can you folks see and hear me? I don't see a picture of myself, but I'm going to assume that you can hear me.
All good, Jonathan. Yeah.
Great. So as Johanna said, when our companies and organizations got together nearly 2 years ago, we asked ourselves, what could we do together to have the biggest impact on the packaging and smallwares that our industry uses? And we quickly decided that what we needed to do was show our industry the trade-offs between reusable containers and disposable containers. But we also realized that we weren't going to be getting rid of the disposable containers anytime soon. And we also needed to choose our disposables carefully to have the highest degree of sustainable performance. So that kind of gave birth to this idea of creating a scorecard. When we look around the internet, you can find lots of information about all these different products, but a lot of it is sort of single study based. And what we really needed was a single comparison, a single yardstick to evaluate all the options, so you get an apples to apples comparison. And we wanted to wrestle with questions like, which materials are more sustainable? Is aluminum more sustainable than glass? Are plastic coated paper cups more sustainable than all plastic cups? What if it has recycled content? How do we factor in compostability, sustainability certifications, recyclability, lightweighting of materials, and so on? You get this blizzard of sustainability claims, and we really wanted a way to kind of understand what the real trade-offs were. And we wanted to get at how do all these disposable options compare to reusable, say on dishwashing, or for energy use for dishwashing or water use. So we got together, we spent a lot of time building the scorecard, and we're now going to show it to you, and then we're going to bring on the rest of the industry panel. We're going to put together a little skit because we like acting and because we thought that would help show you not just what the scorecard does, but how we hope it will be used. So let's introduce the rest of our panelists. Judy, Hamza, and Julia, are you with us?
Yes.
Great. Could you each introduce yourself, who you are in real life, and who you'll be playing in our skit?
Great, I'll start. So Judy Panelist, I'm with Sodexo. I look after responsible sourcing for Sodexo, and I will be playing a responsible sourcing manager.
I'll go
Hamza?
next.
Julia?
Hi, everybody. Julia Jordan, Director of Sustainability for Compass Group, and I'll be playing the role of the account manager.
Hello, everyone. Hamza Abdelragib. I'm the Sustainable Sourcing Manager at Airmark and the Vendor Group, and I'll be playing the role of a sourcing manager.
All right. So I think our scene starts at the water cooler in the kitchen. Julia, I think you're up first.
Hi, Hamza. My client has ideas about sustainable cups and containers, and it's not what we usually buy. His boss's cousin's wife has a cool new company that makes sustainable products. So I was just going to get a price sheet from them.
Julia, hold on. Please don't go buying just anything off the market. We have a lot of options on contract. So can you tell me a little bit about what they're looking into from a sustainability perspective?
Well, for starters, he doesn't want us throwing out so much and heard that we should eliminate plastic. They are just starting a sustainability council and want me to be involved, but I'm no expert.
Okay, so Let's get Judy on the phone. She's our sustainable sourcing person.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know we had someone like that.
Yeah, let's call her up. Hey, Judy. I have Julia here with me. Her client has some questions about food service containers and food service ware. I've also been getting a lot of inquiries about what's more sustainable, plastics, etc. Julia, can you explain to Judy what your client needs specifically?
Yeah, at our staff meeting this morning, I heard requests for compostable plastic, more recycled content, sustainably certified fiber and lighter weight products. Some people wanted us to switch to reusable cups, but we have a corporate water efficiency goal, so we don't want to use a lot more water washing dishes. What should we do, and how do we know which products are actually better?
Great, great. I'm so glad you asked. Now, I'm just going to have to figure out how to share my screen. We have this really cool new tool that has just come out. Hold on, let me see if I can get myself up and running here. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let me, now I can't see something else here that I need to see. Great. Okay, so this is the most recent version. It's not even published yet. It is a coalition of really clever industry and NGO experts came up with this Understanding Packaging Scorecard, which is a free science-based tool that shows the sustainability trade-offs of choosing different reusables or single-use solutions. So let me show you, and then we can figure out how we work with your client to decide what's right for them. Okay, so really quick, let me show you down in here in the corner. It's a little hard to see, but this is a beta version, which means we're hoping for people who start using it to give us feedback. So please, whenever you're in here, make sure you give us feedback. It's so important because we intend to make this better and better as it goes. So to get into the scorecard, you just click use the scorecard. And when we have some time, we can read through all of these things, but let's just pick a container so I can show you what this does. So when this comes up, let me know which container you think we should try.
Judy, let's try cold cups. There's always cup questions.
Awesome. Okay, so let me do cold cups. And we've got all these different types of cold cups that we can select. So what do you think? Should we pick a couple? What would you like to do?
I'd like to see them all because I think we have all of them on contract.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll do a quick view all so you can see, and then you just click compare. Super simple. And as it's calculating and putting this together, what it comes out with is a dashboard page with all the options ranked from best to worst by the average of 6 sustainability metrics: plastic pollution, chemicals of concern, climate, water use, sustainable sourcing, recoverability. So you can see our reusables totally float to the top. Anything else you want, any questions you want in here and some of the details?
How do I know that our specifically contracted cups are represented?
Okay, so what's really cool about this tool, we can take any one of these. Let's try the paper cup unlined, and we're going to click the little buttons here. We're going to customize it. And so this is really based on generic containers, but if you have the specs of something that's under contract, you can go in here and change percent of recycled content, how much travel it does, whether it has any certifications, or whether it's sustainable sources or composting, information about chemicals of concern. And then you can go back to your product profile and it gives you some more information.
So what about like from a recycling and composting perspective? You know, I know some sites can recycle or compost specific materials and not others.
Sure. Let's get out of this. This is the single product. So let's cancel that for now. You can go up here. Right now it's based on US recoverability averages. But if you click on this, and oh, by the way, we're hoping new versions will come with multiple locations, not just US. And then you can go into this custom composting and recycling. And this is where you capture what your waste stream can handle. And it has a variety of things. First, the question is composting even available for you? And then it gets into which parts of that would you be able to compost? Are there synthetic materials that you'd be able to compost? It gets into the different recycling and what kinds of materials would be recyclable. So this helps you really customize what your scorecard ends up being. Is this helpful?
This is awesome.
Cool.
Judy, this is amazing. Could we sit down with my client to review the scorecard?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a free, open to anyone tool, and we can go through this and work with the client.
So,
And
are you guys done with your demonstration?
Yes.
We resume our real identities.
Yes.
Great, thanks for sharing that. There's obviously a lot in there, and Judy went through this very quickly, but you're going to see some more screenshots and hear more about what's under the hood when some of our other speakers come on. But right now, while we've got our industry panel here, it'll be great to just have a little fireside chat, because we always have to have fireside chats in our industry now. If we have a few minutes about how we see this working for us in our industry. Hamza, what's your take? Like, how do you see a tool like this actually getting used by the food service industry?
Yeah, so the main thing, as was spoken about in the introduction, is that, any food service company trying to purchase more sustainably has to navigate like all these different claims and certifications and pieces of information, and it's really difficult, right? So this tool kind of puts it all in one place and allows you to look at the various impact areas. In terms of kind of usability, we look at it as possibly useful, both kind of centrally. So when companies like ours go out to contract and evaluate suppliers and products, we can use it as a tool to kind of contract for more sustainable options. And then obviously, because it also goes into kind of unit level information, so the recyclability or compostability at a specific location, units can also use it to choose the most appropriate product for their location.
What I also love is that when my suppliers ask me questions about this space, I can say, go to this tool. It's science-based. You can see where we're headed as buyers, right? So that the industry itself isn't getting different messages from so many different people.
How do we see our clients using this? Julia, any thoughts about that?
It's really exciting because this is the first kind of tool of its kind that lays everything out in one space that clients need to know about the sustainability of their food service packaging. So I really, see us really using the tool to help clients navigate that space and provide, additional information for them, and they can use this as a reference tool.
Joanna used the phrase market signal at the beginning of our webinar here today. How do you all see this as maybe being a way to send out that signal?
I think because it's based on science, right? And we can see what is ranked from a sustainability perspective, but it also takes into account that we have to have choices that match to that waste stream, right? And so this helps us and our suppliers understand where the matching solutions need to be.
Great. So I think we're at time, but last question, how can our suppliers, other experts and stakeholders help us improve this going forward?
If that, oh shoot, I don't have my screen up there. Please give feedback, right? You can reach out to any of us who are on this team and give us feedback. You can do the feedback form. You know, we really see that this is a great way we can even put in customized and save those customized containers, so that if a supplier eventually we can develop that kind of tooling for this, then that's the kind of feedback we would need if that was interesting.
Great. So we are at time. I think I now introduce Kyle Meisterling, who really is the expert behind a lot of this. Kyle's company, Scope 3 Consulting, specializes in life cycle assessments, and Kyle's done amazing work for us to put together the technical underpinnings to a lot of the scorecard. So I hand it over to you, Kyle.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks to the fireside chatters. Okay, so let's see. Do I have control here, Florian? Request.
You should already.
Okay, so as we saw before, there are 6 categories, and basically each product gets a score in each category. So there's 6 of those, which we call metrics, and there's also a summary score. So now here I'm gonna, scratch the surface on the methodology, and I'm sure there'll be many questions, and I'll show you where you can go to look for more details in a few minutes, and also to submit your feedback. So of these 6 metrics, there are 3 quantitative life cycle metrics. That's the plastic pollution, climate impact, and water use. And so these are, measuring a physical quantity of impact. And so I'm going to talk about these 3 first. So the climate impact and water use, again, these are life cycle metrics. So processes from throughout the product life cycle are included. And for most of the processes, for most of the activities that we're modeling, we use the EcoInvent database, which is widely used and updated regularly. In our model currently, we have over 50 processes which are related to materials. So that's raw material supply and production. There's about 20 forming activities, so to take those raw materials and convert them into a product. And we have a few different freight and transport options, as well as a bunch of incineration and landfill processes that go along with each of the different types of materials. And then, of course, we have a washing process for those reusable items. Now, there are some data gaps, and we had to use some other sources for some of the processes. And again, those details are all in the methodology document. So as just a very simple example, if we consider a PET single-use cold cup, some of the processes that go into our life cycle model would include fossil-based brand new PET production, the processes that go into producing a recycled PET material. Of course, we have the thermoforming. We have the process of using the container, which includes litter and collection at the end of life and disposal. Next, I will talk about a little bit more in detail about the plastic pollution metric. So again, there are sources of plastic pollution from throughout the supply chain. And in this, we consider basically plastic pollution to land and aquatic ecosystems on the same basis here. So we're not distinguishing between plastic that is, for example, gets into the ecosystem near an ocean or farther from. So there are 2 basically, well, let me step back here. So there's leakage from litter. So this is during the use of the product, and the litter rates depend on the size of the item, the size of the product or the component of the product. And you can see here that the litter rate is higher for smaller items. And these estimates come from Qantas and EA. They published I'm blanking on the name, but I'll think of it in a minute. But they published a big report last year about plastic pollution. And in addition to plastic pollution from litter, we also have leakage from other processes, the manufacturing of the plastic, product forming. And as you can see, the evidence suggests that leakage during litter is a lot higher than leakage from upstream. But of course, as we get, so these data there's pretty slim data right now, and of course we're collecting more all the time. So as we get more data, we will update these litter rates. So that's a quick snapshot of the 3 quantitative metrics. Then I'll talk about these 2 qualitative system performance metrics, sustainable sourcing and recoverability. So first, let's talk about recoverability. This is a metric which rewards reusable products. It rewards materials that are recoverable for commercial use and/or can be converted to a beneficial material in nature. And the score depends on 2 important items. So one is whether the product is designed to be recovered, and 2, whether the recovery infrastructure is available to collect and reuse that item. And the recoverability is based on a 5-point score. So at the best here, we have a 5 score for reusable products. And at the bottom end, we have a score of 1 for products that are not recoverable, that are not recovered and are not degradable in the environment, or that contain persistent toxic pollutants. And as a quick example, so again, here's a few examples of products, and of course they get a score if they're recovered, and if they're not recovered, the reusable items get a score of 5 regardless. Uncoated fiber products, they can get either a score of 4, that's the light green, or 2, that's the orange, depending on whether they're recovered or not, and so on. And so the check marks there are basically indicating the default settings in the model. And by default, we really only assume that a few of the items would be recovered by default. So for example, PET bottles and HDPE bottles. All right, and then I'll quickly talk about sustainable sourcing, the second qualitative metric. Again, this rewards reusable products, it rewards recycled content, and it rewards certified biomass. It's also on a 5-point scale. I know I'm short on time, so I'm going to skip some of these details for now, because I just want to focus in on the numbers and the symbols on the scorecard and what they actually mean. So the raw scores are the numbers. So for example, this is grams of CO2 equivalent that are emitted, or liters of water that are used in the life cycle. The color-coded icons are what we call ranking scores. And so within each metric, so within each of the impact areas, we rank all of the products within a use case. So here a use case is cold cups. And so we take all of the products that are in that use case, and we kind of rank them from best to worst. And best would get a score of 100, the best would get a score of 100%, and the worst would get a score of 0%. So we see that the green dot with the plus, those are among the highest scoring products within that impact area. And then the red X is basically that represents products that are scoring among the worst within that use case, or sorry, within that impact area. Okay, so and then finally, of course, the summary score is an equal weighted average of those ranking scores. And we know that it can be somewhat contentious about how you aggregate these 6 different metrics. So an idea for future is to let users perhaps weigh each of these impact areas to their own judgments. So now I've talked about 5 of the 6 impact areas, and then we'll get into chemicals of concern. I guess I should say here briefly that I know that I probably raise more questions than I answer, but if you go to upscorecard.org, go to the methodology page, and then click on the methodology document, and you can get a lot of detail there. And also, if you have further questions, don't hesitate to share those questions, and we'll make sure they get to the right person. So now to talk about the 6th impact area, chemicals of concern, please let me introduce Boma West Brown. Boma is Director of Consumer Health at Environmental Defense Fund. She leads the nonprofit's work with companies to eliminate toxic chemicals from consumer products, packaging, and food, to increase transparency, and to invest in safer ingredient innovation. Over to you, Boma.
Thanks, Kyle. Hi, everyone. One of the novel aspects of the UP Scorecard is the chemical of concern metric. And to build a clean circular economy, we have to think of circularity holistically, where not only the climate, water, and waste impacts of materials are considered, but also the health impacts of those materials on people and the planet. And this means working to reduce the use of chemicals of concern in foodware and packaging. So when we say chemical of concern, we're specifically talking about a chemical substance that has one or more of the following hazard properties, as informed by authoritative organizations like ECHA and UNEP: carcinogenic, mutagenic, toxic to reproduction, endocrine disruption, persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic, very persistent and very bioaccumulative, and/or persistent, mobile, and toxic. The prevalence of chemicals of concern in food packaging is well documented. Hundreds of harmful substances from orthophthalates to styrene are in use in food packaging materials and their production, and can leach into our food and beverages, winding up in our bodies. And in discarded materials, these chemicals can either contaminate our environment or reemerge in recycled content. With the growing evidence of the connection between chemicals and health, there is enormous pressure on the food industry from consumers, NGOs, investors, and others to champion a clean circular economy. The industry can do this by increasing transparency along the supply chain about chemical additives and food contact materials and their safety, restricting and eliminating harmful substances, and ultimately charting a pathway towards safer chemistry in food contact materials. This, as usual, poses significant financial and reputational risks for companies, especially now as consumers and investors in particular are holding companies accountable to step up in a big way on environmental and social issues and are calling out those that don't. And for business leaders, championing safer foodware and packaging can translate into higher consumer trust and ultimately a competitive advantage. So the chemicals of concern metric gives corporate purchasers the information needed to better understand the potential health impacts of their packaging, provides guidance for eliminating toxic chemicals, and sets companies on the path to finding safer ingredients. So now we'll take now we're going to walk through, how the metric works. Move the slide there. Each food contact material in the UP Scorecard has a chemicals of concern score built upon two factors. The first one being the presence of intentionally added chemicals of concern and the reliability of the information provided, as well as the second point, the inertness of the food contact material, which is used as a proxy for the propensity for toxic chemicals to migrate from the packaging into food and the environment. For this, we created a harmonized list called the Food Contact Chemicals of Concern list that captures known chemicals of concern present in foodware and packaging materials. The content of this list is prioritized and grouped into 3 tiers, where tier 1 presents a short list of priority chemicals to avoid, and tiers 2 and 3 present more extensive sets of chemicals to avoid using. Reflecting the best available science, these tiers reflect research conducted by the Decelerator and publicly available information provided by leading NGO and industry associations, including Environmental Defense Fund, the Food Safety Alliance for Packaging, and Food Packaging Forum. The combined chemicals of concern scores for food contact materials is on a scale from 1 to 100. With the chemical of concern scores, users of the UP Scorecard can more readily compare different food packaging materials by their likelihood to contain and leach out chemicals of concern. Today, the scorecard features default scores for common generic foodware materials based on research and external expert review. Where only limited or highly uncertain data were available, this is visually communicated to the user on the scorecard. Users can also customize attributes of the materials to see how it affects the score. So for example, whether the material is compliant with tier 1 of the food contact chemicals of concern list, or whether the user has documentation verifying compliance. In future scorecard updates, we'll continue to refine the chemicals of concern metric methodology and the food contact chemicals of concern list by incorporating additional data and feedback from scorecard users and industry professionals like you. We also plan to build in a way for innovators and champions of safer packaging to leverage the tool to share with their customers how they are proactively creating safer materials. For example, allowing users to build their own customized materials or add trade name materials in the scorecard and compare them to the default materials. We also envision this tool eventually incorporating full chemical hazard assessments and optimization options that help companies move from declarations of free of to more powerful claims of verified, safe, and circular. With that, I will now turn it over to Florian Suter. Florian is a scientific officer at the Food Packaging Forum Foundation. His current work focuses on coordinating the ongoing scientific and technical development of the UP Scorecard tool.
Thank you, Boma, for this nice introduction. So I'm taking over and I try to keep it as short as possible. So what's the current status of the tool? We have a published version. It's a beta version. That's the one you can access from upscorecard.org. And this has some basic functionalities. But as you already can see in the chat, there are many questions and things that could be improved and ideas what we could include as well. So at the moment, we already work on a new tool version. That was actually the demo you saw before. This upcoming version will be released soon, and it will contain additional container types, so the grayed out ones at the moment, and it will also have additional functionality and usability improvements. But of course, we also think already one step further. So what major tool upgrades will be for the future? So some expanded functionalities, further use and access options. And I would like to briefly focus on this third one. So what could or should come in the future? It is important to say that, of course, there is a regular maintenance of the tool, the one we have now, but also, of course, the upcoming ones. And important, as you already heard, it's a beta version at the moment, and sometime in the future, that's not defined yet, we will come an alpha version. But for this, we need further testing and some further improvement. That's why, of course, it's very welcome when you have comments and feedback on the current tool version. Having said that, I shortly present ideas for the future developments. As you already heard, there is the regionalization one. So having default data for other regions in the world, customization options or more customization options like adding new containers, additional metrics if possible. It would be really nice to have kind of real costs included, but that will be difficult, but probably also other sustainability metrics like biodiversity loss and so on. Languages, of course, especially when we do a regionalization, probably it would be nice to have other languages included, like French, German, and so on, Spanish. Then additional products and container types. Connectivity, there are ideas to connect the tool to other tools or databases, for example, the marketplace that is run by ChemSec. Further information, background information, probably also more accessible background information like infographics and so on. Further personalization, meaning an account option where you can further customize the materials and so on. And of course, as already mentioned before, if there are any further ideas, they are very welcome. I just would like briefly to focus on regionalization and new products container types, because that's most likely that this will be the next major upgrades, but it's not decided yet. So regionalization could mean that we provide generic data for more regions. That could be countries, that could be continents like Europe, like Asia, or that could also be cities. So we think about, maybe for a start, there would be 5 to 10 additional default regions where you can choose from. And regionalization, of course, would be, for example, electricity grids, but also other data like end of life, transport, and so on. What kind of regions we will choose, or most likely would like to choose, is of course also depending on the data availability. And the other one is the products and container types. So that would mean to expand the number and types of products that can be tested, especially when it comes to reusable ones, or the often discussed bioplastic-based products. Would be very nice to have additional ones included. And of course, to have further customization options for the user. Besides this kind of upgrades, we also thinking about further possible improvements and use ideas. Of course, it would be nice to further improve the methodologies, especially chemicals of concern. That would mean, for example, to get even more consensus or better consensus on certain things, or get data or more data if that is available. Then make tool calculations accessible in other applications, for example, e-commerce or API case could be an option. Then, of course, data collection for more advanced calculations. That could be that users can provide their own data to fill the database with more or more precise data. And as I said, as I mentioned, to enable use of personal accounts to have a better way to interact with the tool on an individual basis. So as a quick summary to these improvements, the current beta version of the UP Scorecard is not the end. It will be further developed and upgraded with new functionalities. And of course, feedback is more than welcome. And also, if you have any ideas or preferences for further developments, that would be very nice to know. So on the one hand, as mentioned in the live demo, you can give feedback in the tool itself. You could also email us using social media. You find everything on upscorecard.org. And there will also be a follow-up email to today's introduction event with a short survey where you can say what kind of developments you would like the most. And we would also like now how you can or could or would use the tool with a third poll. Yeah, so I think you already see it. Okay, there is still some changes, but there is kind of well, not that clear anymore, but still a clear winner, which is plastic pollution, and then hazardous chemicals. So I think that's also one of the especially the hazardous chemicals. So meaning the health impacts. That's one of the more or less standalone things of this tool at the moment. That's really nice to see, but also all the other impact areas are important. Thank you for this. So, of course, there are many different reasons to use the UP Scorecard and also to be engaged in the SAMD group, as many people do already. We will show you now a video with statements from SAMD members, and this presents nicely the bouquet of all these different reasons. And yeah, we hope that you get inspired as well by this video.
Hi, I've been extremely honored to be a part of this extraordinary cross-industry collaboration to make sustainable purchasing easier. The UP Scorecard is a robust and well-vetted tool that allows you to sort through the myriad of products and takes away the complexity of the LCA to allow you access to understanding what the most sustainable choice for your needs is. The Single-Use Materials Decelerator has been an incredible effort to bring this tool forth free and accessible in order for all of us to be able to move the needle forward for a more sustainable future.
I'm grateful for being a member of the SUMD group because by working together, we can make science-based change in the right direction.
Kind of collaboration that we need. There's NGOs, for-profit organizations, small, big companies, industry, and it's only by coming together with a large group of diverse stakeholders that we're going to find the solutions.
I loved working with the SUMD group as the issues of food serviceware disposables is not something any one company can address. And I'm really proud that the collaboration has resulted in the UP Scorecard because this tool will help food operators, buyers, and responsible sourcing make more positive choices.
If we really want to move the market toward more sustainable foodware and food packaging, it's essential that we provide institutional purchasers an easier way to identify the right products. And the UP Scorecard does exactly that.
For too long, sustainability hasn't been core to the decision-making around food packaging materials. But now, the UP Scorecard makes it easier for companies to choose packaging materials that meet their business needs without harming the environment or people's health.
This tool will be a huge help as we begin the cultural shift away from single-use materials to more sustainable ways to package and deliver food and beverages.
The most exciting aspect of UP Scorecard is that it considers chemicals of concern along other more traditional criteria used to evaluate product sustainability.
For the first time, gives us a single yardstick to cut through all of this complexity and compare all the different options that we have in the marketplace.
It helps users to also take into account the chemical safety of the foodware and food packaging they use.
I'm motivated by the challenge of creating a scorecard that is scientifically robust, but that is also easy to use and to understand.
As a sustainable sourcing professional, a comprehensive science-based tool to compare food service disposables is of great value and something we've needed for years.
The UP Scorecard allows you to understand packaging in a more comprehensive way. It gives you a knowledge upgrade on potential environmental and health impacts.
Having packaging sustainability all summed up in one tool like this is going to enable procurement decisions that have better outcomes for people and the planet.
I'm part of the SUMD group because the UP Scorecard will be an important tool for food service.
Together, we can accelerate the transition to a safe and circular food services economy.
So with these insights, we are already near the end of the event. But before that, there is still room for some or 2 to 3 questions. So I'm happy to hand over again to Johanna for the Q&A session. And I also would like to ask all presenters to turn on their camera again.
Great, thanks, Florian. We also have the results of the poll on the screen now. So we see 3 kind of top contenders: climate, plastic pollution, and hazardous chemicals, kind of reaching the top of concern for folks. So we'll be keeping that in mind. Thanks for responding to the poll. All right, let's see here. We have questions in both the Q&A box as well as in the chat. We're trying to get to at least a few. Thanks to those of you who upvoted questions. Let's start with the top question in the Q&A box. Does the scorecard have a metric for energy usage at end of life, recycling, composting, etc.? Maybe Kyle, you want to cover that one?
Sure. let's see. So this gets into details of the LCA, obviously. Let me just say that we take a perspective that if a material is recovered, that means that someone down the line is going to use it. So if it's a compost user, if you're a farmer using compost, then the emissions of composting, for example, those show up in the compost that you use. Similarly, with plastic recycling, if you use recycled plastic, then the emissions of sorting the material, of cleaning it, and then of remanufacturing it, those emissions are included in the recycled content. So that's a short answer to a complicated question. And if anyone wants to add to it, feel free.
Great, thanks, Kyle. I think we'll keep going through the questions here. The next most votes question, is this aligned with the Sustainable Packaging Coalition's resources and or the Walmart Sustainable Packaging Guidelines developed with the SPC and APR? Who wants to take that one?
I could swing at that one. So Walmart actually was an influential source for us. As Kyle mentioned earlier, our recoverability metric asked a question about product design and whether or not a particular cup or can is designed to be recycled. And those design criteria are actually published in a Walmart playbook on circularity, which was super helpful. And we actually took a lot of their work for that part of the tool.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Question here about the impact of single-use products and whether it includes the single-use packaging they're shipped in, like cardboard and LDPE, or is there a way to add that in the settings?
So I can take that. Right now, we do not consider the secondary packaging. Now, we have plans to add that in. And of course, materials like corrugated cardboard, plastic film, HDPE pallets, or what have you, those materials are already populated in the tool. So basically all the pieces are there, and we just, to put them together to include that secondary packaging is work that is possible work in the future, but yeah, the secondary packaging is not currently included in those impacts.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Some questions from the chat were asking about how we're going to address new materials coming onto the market. There were notes about us that the tool doesn't include certain new fiber-based products and how that might improperly score the top items. So does someone want to speak to that about why certain things are not included right now and our plans to update in the future?
Well, I can briefly take that. So on the one hand, of course, it's a question of data availability. It's also, of course, a question of there are many materials coming to the market and going from the market. And of course, we try to pick the most important ones for this generic kind of use, and also to update that in a certain extent. But as I mentioned, it would also be nice to have in the future an option to include your own products or materials you know about. So to keep track on that, because I think it's nearly impossible to just include everything that comes newly to the market.
Great. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we are running out of time and we will have to wrap up this session. Florian, if you could share your screen again one more time, please. So I am sorry to end the question and answers. This has been a really dynamic chat this whole time. And we really look forward to continuing the discussion for the coming months. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you very much to the DDA and Martine Primat Foundation for their generous financial support in the future developments of the scorecard. And I want to say thank you to all of you who joined us today, engaged in the questions and the chats, And we really look forward to continuing the discussion. As we mentioned, you can provide feedback on the upscorecard.org website, interact with us on social media, send us an email. We really do look forward to hearing your feedback and hearing how you're going to put this scorecard to use to drive the market transition we're seeking. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.